joining us today. Potentially, we have someone from the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, if Keelan can, if we can figure out the technology error here. And then we also have Chief Lavelle from the Portland Police Bureau. We also have a full staff of city staff and our partners here to answer questions. And with that, I will pass it over to Mayor Wheeler.
Very good. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. We're here today to discuss our public safety preparations for the summer season, particularly because we know that gun violence typically escalates during the summer months. Tomorrow, the first Friday in June, we will honor National Gun Violence Awareness Day. This day affords us a significant opportunity to acknowledge and reflect on the lives forever altered by gun violence, and to consider what more we can do to intervene in this deadly cycle. While an annual day is certainly an important reminder, my administration remains focused on people who've lost loved ones to gun violence each and every day. We're continuing to bolster our public safety initiatives with critical investments that I want to share with all of you today. I want to be clear, Portlanders deserve to feel safe in their community. I'm here to say to you that we hear you, and we're dedicated to bringing accountability for the harm you've endured and to intervening to prevent others from feeling that same pain. Today, I'm here to tell you exactly how we plan to do that. Joining me this morning are Sierra Ellis and Andrew Culberson, both from the Office of Violence Prevention, Keelan Henderson from the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, if we can get him logged on, and of course, Portland Police Chief Chuck Lavelle. The City of Portland is working closely with the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform to launch and implement a new focused deterrence approach to reducing gun violence in Portland called Portland Ceasefire. This model, implemented with successful outcomes in other cities such as Oakland and Stockton and elsewhere, focuses on identifying those at the highest risk of involvement in gun violence and offering them outreach and services to help them change their lives. This subject matter expertise will be invaluable as it guides us to build and implement a program tailored specifically to the needs of Portland. Portland Ceasefire will work to unify the efforts of the community, law enforcement, and other government partners to engage directly with those at the highest risk of perpetrating or being victimized by gun violence. Later, Sierra Ellis, the program manager for Portland Ceasefire, and Keelan Henderson, Violence Reduction Program Manager at the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, will provide additional information about this strategy. I'd now like to outline a supporting approach that's currently underway. Through the Office of Violence Prevention, the city has invested $4.5 million over the next 2 years to implement a street-level outreach program. Street-level outreach is a core program of the Office of Violence Prevention that hires violence interrupters, people with lived experience and credibility in the community who can engage with those at risk of becoming a victim or a perpetrator of violence. While street-level outreach has existed since the launch of the Office of Violence Prevention in 2006, we are strengthening our street-level outreach framework by adopting the Cure Violence model. This is an evidence-based national best practice that focuses on identifying and engaging those at the risk of involvement in gun violence. We're working closely with the Cure Violence Global team to implement this new model and to provide training and support to the local street-level outreach teams in Portland. This model has proven highly effective in other communities in reducing gun violence. We're very pleased and optimistic in bringing this approach to the City of Portland. OVP began requesting for proposals for this work from local organizations in December of 2022, creating 3 long-term contracts through a competitive and transparent process. One contract has already been awarded to POIC to work in the North Portland area, and 2 additional contracts will soon be awarded to serve the Northeast and Southeast Portland areas. Those contracts should be awarded in June. Together, Portland Ceasefire and Cure Violence will complement one another and help us make meaningful improvements in the safety of our community. These aren't the only strategy that we're using to reduce gun violence in the City of Portland. Through the Office of Violence Prevention, Council has invested in further strategies with an unprecedented $14 million over the next 2 years. In addition to street-level outreach, the Office of Violence Prevention is also providing services like school-based programs for middle school students. The program is called Youth Against Violence. Intensive case management for 18 months in a program designed for the highest risk individuals. Healing Hurt People, which is a hospital-based gun violence interruption program, and support for families of the highest risk individuals through the Trauma and Violence Impacted Families Program. Later, Andrew Culbertson, a program manager with OVP, the Office of Violence Prevention, will discuss these efforts and additional violence prevention efforts. In addition to the tremendous ongoing work that the Office of Violence Prevention is already doing, we've been preparing for violence prevention under the existing Safer Summer PDX program. Last year, I declared a state of emergency around gun violence in Portland, and I implemented the Safer Summer PDX program. That emergency declaration still remains in place today. Through Safer Summer PDX, from July to December of 2022, we invested $2.7 million in community-based organizations aimed at steering individuals at high risk away from violence, creating pro-social events, and working with communities to employ place-based strategies to deter gun violence. We worked with neighbors and businesses in the entertainment district, which had the highest rate of gun violence anywhere in the City of Portland. Through collaboration amongst the community, the Portland Police Bureau, the Portland Bureau of Transportation, and other government bureaus, a plan was developed to modify the flow of traffic, increase foot patrols, improve lighting, and enforce various code violations that contributed to gun violence in the entertainment district area. Shooting incidents within the district dropped from the highest frequency in the City of Portland to 0 in short order. City bureaus also work closely with neighbors in Montevilla to address gun violence and other criminal activity along 82nd Avenue. After substantial collaboration amongst the Community Safety Division, PBOT, PPB, and led by the city's Safe Blocks team, gun homicides dropped to 0 in that area for a year. Sadly, there was a homicide near 82nd and Milton recently, but we're committed to adjusting our strategies with the community's help for as long as it takes. City teams are continuing this work even now in the entertainment district, Montevilla, as well as Hazelwood and Elliott. Taking lessons we learned in last year's Safer Summer PDX program, we ensured that we began summer planning well in advance for the summer of 2023. This year, we began making summertime violence prevention investments in March. Safer Summer PDX ramped up existing street-level outreach capacity by engaging 7 additional grassroots organizations to engage at-risk individuals through the end of this upcoming summer. This additional investment will ensure that there are no gaps in outreach work while we complete the RFP process for the Cure Violence street-level outreach program. Our partners provide violence interruption, outreach, and mentorship programs alongside existing outreach programs by POIC, NEA, IRCO, and the Latino Network. This substantial investment in summertime safety means we currently have twice the number of outreach workers on the ground than we did last year, twice as many. With many lessons learned from last year, Safer Summer PDX has made a difference. When we started in July of 22, Portland's gun violence was growing at a shocking rate of 200% compared to similar cities. By the end of 2022, we were able to stem that rate of growth and prevent the spike in violence that was predicted over the summer. From July to October of 2022, we saw a 19% reduction in all shooting incidents compared with the same months in 2021. And we've continued to see data indicating positive trends for this year. Comparing 2022 and 2023 year-to-date data as of the end of April, we've seen a total reduction in shooting incidents of 28%. I firmly believe that the Safer Summer investments last year and this year have helped build a solid foundation for the steps we're taking to add sustainable violence prevention programs to our toolkit. In addition to the Safer Summer programming, the Community Safety Division team has also worked to revitalize the Safe Blocks program, formerly the Crime Prevention Program, which advances community-led collaborative strategies using a crime prevention through environmental design approach. This work supports community members through trainings, education, place-based security assessments, and community building activities, as well as resources and referrals. This program includes certified crime prevention through environmental design experts who provide guidance on reducing vulnerability to harm and increasing positive activity in public spaces. The Safe Blocks program was recently awarded a $2 million federal grant to expand its work, and we're using these resources to bring the program into other neighborhoods such as Hazelwood. There are many great initiatives and events the Safe Blocks team has planned in the coming months, and I encourage everyone to check out their website to learn more. I would be remiss if I did not address the issue of gunshot detection technology as I describe the city's approach to curbing gun violence. Chief Lavelle and I recently received substantial community feedback both for and against gunshot detection technology, and we both had discussions together as well as with our colleagues. Taking all of this into consideration, along with the strategies that we're discussing today, we have decided that this is not the time to implement a gunshot detection pilot in Portland. Therefore, I will not proceed with bringing a proposal to City Council. The strategies that I've just outlined are the best ones for right now that we believe can make the biggest impact in reducing gun violence in the near term. I want to thank the Focused Intervention Team Community Oversight Group for the tremendous amount of work that was put into its recommendation. It was exceptionally well done, and I certainly appreciate the impressive effort put forward by good people who volunteered their time as members of our community. Believe me when I say that this decision was difficult, but in the end, the Chief and I believe that this technology could be revisited once we've realized the benefits of strong recruitment and staffing efforts underway at PPB. In other words, we will have the opportunity to revisit this kind of detection technology in the future. More information about this decision will be released tomorrow. Speaking of the good efforts at the Portland Police Bureau, many good people at the Bureau are working tirelessly to be resourceful and innovative as they strive to make Portland a safer place for all of us. Chief Chuck Lavelle is here this morning and will speak in a moment to PPB's efforts to support not only gun violence prevention, but also how the Portland Police Bureau is responding to criminal behavior more broadly and the impacts that we're seeing. Our work is far from done, and while we're certainly encouraged by the data, We are doubling down on our efforts to keep these positive trends going and to extend them. We're unified, coordinated, and well prepared for the work ahead. It's going to take all of us to implement lasting change, and we stand ready to work together to make it a reality. It's now my pleasure to introduce Sierra Ellis and Keelan Henderson, who will speak to the Portland Ceasefire Program. Welcome.
Let's take a pause really quick just to see if this is going to work.
Oh, good.
Okay. So he can't hear us. Okay. Keelan, can you hear us? Okay. He can hear us, but we can't hear him.
Okay, so at this point, it's going to be for something on his side. There's nothing at this moment in time that should be.
So far be it for me to suggest a technology thing, period, writ large.
Yeah.
Why don't we just call him and put him on speakerphone next to the microphone?
We could potentially do that. Okay. So this is
Earn my paycheck.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do everything.
Okay. Sir, do you want to get started?
Yeah.
We'll call him
Yeah.
up.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler, and good morning, everyone. Once again, my name is Sierra Ellis, and I serve as the program manager for the Focused Deterrence Model Ceasefire. It is truly an honor to collaborate with the Mayor's Office, law enforcement, the National Institute of Criminal Justice Reform, community-based organizations, and other critical stakeholders in our shared goal to reduce violence in our city. Achieving this goal requires collaboration, coordination, and trust from all partners involved. Ceasefire success hinges on these vital elements. We acknowledge that this problem did not arise overnight, and its resolution will take time. But I'm confident that we have assembled the capable team to address it effectively. Ceasefire is a focused deterrent strategy designed to tackle the issues of gun violence within our communities. This strategy comprises 4 main components. The first involves data-driven identification to identify individuals who are at highest risk of becoming a perpetrator or victim of gun violence. The second component is locating these individuals, which we accomplish through direct and respectful communication. The third component involves engagement by providing a community of support and connecting high-risk individuals to our intensive case management program. Later, our program manager, Andrew Culberson, will touch on this. Lastly, the fourth component involves focused enforcement, which unites the entire law enforcement community with a singular objective of reducing gun violence in our community. This approach entails prioritizing individuals who inflict the most harm upon our community. Through Ceasefire, our overarching goal is to increase public safety citywide. We will do this by reducing gang and group involvement in shootings and homicides, decreasing recidivism and incarceration rates among gang and group members, and strengthening the police-community relations. Once again, resolving this issue requires a collective effort of our community, and I have full confidence that we will make a significant impact. Now I'll hand it over to Keelan, who will delve more deeply into Ceasefire. And
Chief of Police and other folks in the room, we appreciate this opportunity to speak about the amazing work that continues to happen in the city of Portland. We're certainly excited to continue our partnership with the city to help them implement the ceasefire strategy to combat gun violence and increase public safety. And I wanted to echo just a few things Sierra mentioned regarding the gun violence reduction strategy as it relates to Portland and highlight the fact that this is not a law enforcement-led or driven strategy, right? But in fact, it's a strategy that is in equal partnership with direct support provided by a host of community-based organizations really at its core. And so I also wanted to just emphasize, like, the goal is to reduce the risk levels of those who are at the highest risk of becoming victims and perpetrators of gun violence. So this is done primarily by life coaches, also known as credible messengers, and other folks who have an ability to connect and engage with those who are high risk and build relationship with this population to provide that mentorship and guidance that will ultimately lead them to making better decisions. And another thing I want to emphasize is that by providing these services, supports, and opportunities like employment, housing, right? Food, like some of the necessities that we often assume everyone has, we're confident that the outcomes of these individuals will be improved, thereby causing a reduction in gun violence overall. And so we're committed. The National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, is committed to supporting the city's efforts to reduce gun violence, but see reductions in homicides and injury shootings in the very near term. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sierra.
Thank you, Keelan. And Andrew, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Keelan, Sierra, Mayor Wheeler. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Andrew Culberson, and I'm a program manager in the Office of Violence Prevention. I'm excited to speak with you today regarding OVP's programs and how they fit into Portland's ceasefire. Echoing Sierra, I'm honored to be part of this tremendous collaboration. We've heard about the 4 elements of ceasefire, and I'd like to share more about the third piece, support, services, and support. After individuals at the highest risk of experiencing gun violence are identified and informed of their risk through direct and respectful communication, ceasefire then pivots to offering services and support. These highest risk individuals who accept services are paired with an intensive case manager, or ICM, through a community-based organization contracted through OVP. These ICMs first establish a trusting personal relationship with clients, then complete a detailed life plan with specific goals, specific timelines based on that client's individual needs and preferences. ICMs guide their clients toward completion of these goals, including moving to a safer location, completing a diploma or GED, finding a job or receiving training for a more desirable job, enrolling in mental health treatment, and many more. With recent investments, OVP has doubled the available pool of ICMs from 12 to 24. These ICMs are divided into 3 teams. The first works with these highest risk individuals identified through meetings with ceasefire collaborators, such as the weekly shooting review. The second group, our hospital-based intervention service, known as Healing Hurt People, works exclusively with gun violence survivors encountered through local hospital emergency rooms. The third and final group is known as Trauma and Violence Impacted Families, or TVIF. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler, for teeing this up. TVIF case managers work with the families of both high-risk individuals identified through the shooting review and those families of individuals who are lost to gun violence, with the goal of helping break the intergenerational cycle of gun violence, intergenerational transmission of violence. Now, recent investments have also allowed OVP to grow our violence prevention services known as street-level outreach, to double those to 26 SLO workers, as well as to adopt the Cure Violence model. Street-level outreach workers engage with youth and young adults between the ages of 8 and 18 who are at risk of becoming victims or perpetrators of violence. The goal is to reduce the risks, limit future involvement with the criminal justice system. These SLO workers are contracted as well through culturally specific community-based organizations. And SLO workers also attend after-school sporting events, activities, evening scholars, and community events, as well as constantly monitoring designated hotspots around the city. As violence interrupters, these SLO workers are present and respond to hotspots. Hotspots are a combination of specific areas, places, spaces, events, and people that have a history of violence and crime, which increases the risk of potential conflicts occurring and resulting in injury. Street-level outreach workers perform crucial functions within ceasefire, offering counsel, comfort, and services to the community after a shooting, and providing a network of group-connected individuals who help intensive case management teams connect with those highest risk and frankly hard-to-reach individuals. Street-level outreach also serves to alert OVP to newly emerging high-risk individuals, hotspots, and intergroup conflicts. Together, intensive case management and street-level outreach combine to form a comprehensive system of violence prevention and interruption in pursuit of the goals that Sierra mentioned: reducing gang and group-related shootings and homicides, decreasing recidivism and incarceration rates among gang and group members, and strengthening police-community relations. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Chief Lavelle of Portland Police Bureau, whose close collaboration with our office continues to be crucial to achieving our goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for being here today. It's important for us to keep the conversation about gun violence at the forefront. These violent crimes take a toll on our community and deeply affect us all. Also, it's important that we share all the efforts being done to address this in the city. Thank you to all our partners who are here today. We remain committed to working with all of you. I look forward to learning more about how we can best be a partner with the National Institute of Criminal Justice Reform and the details of their focused deterrence model, what our role will be, and how we can best support these efforts. Gun violence remains at historic levels, and it's important that we work with experts to be innovative and, most of all, work together cohesively to make an impact. I want to recognize the members of our Focus Intervention team and Enhanced Community Safety team. I was told yesterday that year to date, the Focus Intervention team has already seized 100 illegal firearms this year. Last year, in all the 12 months, they took 70 guns off the street. And in fact, we looked up the numbers in previous years by other teams, and the record was 98. Our ECST continues to investigate gun crimes in order to hold those involved accountable. And I also want to recognize patrol officers who daily locate and safely apprehend violent offenders who have illegal guns in their possession. Our East Precinct personnel continues their data-driven stolen vehicle missions as well, as we've had a nexus between stolen vehicles and gun crimes. Last year, we were able to take 1,270 guns off the street and submit them for tracing. The stats we have this year are up to April 15th, and that number is 459. These firearms were found to be used in violent crimes such as homicides, injury shootings, aggravated assaults, carjackings, and more. But it's more than just about seizing illegal firearms. It has to be about building relationships and determining those who are most likely to become suspects or victims, and then connecting them with the services discussed. We're at our best when we work in partnership. One example I can think of is around motor vehicles. In the last 12 years versus the prior 12 years, thefts from motor vehicles are down 19%. Auto theft is down 6%. And theft from motor vehicle parts, mostly catalytic converters, are down 42%. And this is through partnership with law enforcement, prosecutors, elected officials, and the legislature, who's made it more difficult to sell stolen parts. I think this is just an example of how partnership can help reduce some of the crimes we're seeing in the city. And our hope is through our partnership and the city's partnership with the National Institute of Criminal Justice Reform, we can have the same results in regards to gun violence. So thank you again to all the partners today. We remain committed to being an active and engaged partner and working towards a shared goal of impacting gun violence. Thank you.
All right, thanks to all the speakers, and we appreciate having Keelan come up here and do it through the phone. They really are the best at what they do, so we're happy to include him. I'm going to invite Stephanie up here. We'll have Lisa Freeman come up here, and we'll go to the Q&A portion next. We'll have you guys just at the ready in case there are questions that you may need to address. We went through a ton of topics today, so I expect the questions to kind of be all over the place, which is fine. And we'll just call out whoever has a question. We'll go from here. Yeah, of course. All right, Brandon. And let us know who you'd like to direct the question to.
For the ceasefire team coordinator, what data are you guys looking at to identify actors being victimized or being perpetrators? What are the data points that you're using to find these folks?
Well, we'll have you come up here, Andrew. Thank you.
Sorry, pardon me. So the question was, what data points are we using to identify highest risk individuals? They tend to be identified through the shooting review. Most often they are individuals who have either been shot already or have already committed a gun violence crime.
Is there anything before they are a part of their first shooting that would be something that you could find them?
There's certainly efforts to find them and interrupt the violence prior to their first shooting. That tends to be where the street level outreach groups would come in, identifying up-and-coming group members. Social media is something that our teams monitor. There's quite a bit of chatter on social media, which often will predate an event. So we're certainly trying to interrupt the violence prior to their first shooting, but data shows that the vast majority of shooters and even those who experience gun violence, who are victims of gun violence, have prior involvement with a shooting.
This is for anyone to answer. Hasn't the city been conducting shooting reviews weekly and doing outreach to the highest risk already? And how is this partnership going to be different?
Oh, Delia, come up. Thank you, Lieutenant.
To answer that question, I'm Ken Dulia, Lieutenant for the Police Bureau, in charge of ECST, Enhanced Community Safety Team, FIT, the Focus Intervention Team, and CRT, the Crisis Response Team. To answer the question, we've probably been doing parts of ceasefire since maybe 2018-19, but this, under a program manager, will bring it all together. There'll be better coordination, and I think we'll be more effective and more efficient. And more money, the mayor says.
All right, we'll go with you.
Emily Gershwin, KPTV News. My
Emily.
question for the mayor.
Sure.
Mayor, over Memorial Day weekend, Portland Police responded to more than 24 major incidents. The 2 weekends before that, they responded to several shootings. My question is, why is this partnership being announced now, and what is the city's response to these early indicators of violence?
Those shootings underscore the importance of the coordinated efforts that we're announcing today. I wish we'd put them into place 10 years ago, but we could not have anticipated that. We built this based on experience of the Safer Summer PDX program last year. As you heard, some of the parts were already in place, the credible interveners, the offshoots into other programming, the hospital-based visits, all that has worked. Part of this effort is also to scale it up. It's pretty clear that a few things have changed that are important. Number one, we're seeing more shots being fired. We're seeing more shell casings. The types of weapons being used are more significant in terms of their ability to scatter bullets more quickly in greater numbers. But I believe collectively all of these efforts, from intervention, diversion, working with law enforcement, all of these things collectively, I believe, will have an impact. And so for me, when I saw those shootings, and they're tragic and they're horrible, and they're especially horrible for the people who are directly impacted, but it impacts the feelings that people have about safety generally in the city of Portland. I'm glad that we had actually started this comprehensive effort for this summer months ago, because we anticipated that the summer would be a difficult situation, and I would expect it to continue to be so.
So would you say this is in response?
No, this was well underway prior to 2 weeks ago. All of this planning goes back months. In fact, it builds on efforts that as you just heard from Dulio, it goes back several years to, in fact, my second year as the mayor 4 years ago.
And then can I ask a follow-up to Chief Lavelle?
Sure, absolutely.
So my question is, if these incidents continue in these numbers, is the Portland Police Department staffed and equipped to handle this volume of incidents?
We're going to respond to these incidents, and just like you mentioned, the last few weekends, we responded to many, many incidents involving guns or violence. Our staffing is kind of what it is today. We're working hard to improve it. Our recruitment's going well. We're working hard with DPSST to get officers through their basic training and onto the streets quicker. And, gun violence, shots in our community are high priority calls. We're going to those calls. We're answering those calls with the folks that are working. We brought back the traffic division earlier, last month, May 11th. They're out, they're visible. they're doing their role. And I think, as time goes on, our focus intervention team, ECST, they get more proficient and efficient at their work. And I think through the partnerships that we've enjoyed with law enforcement, with Gresham, MCSO, OSP, we can do a little bit more than we would normally be able to do on our own. And we're hoping these partnerships that the city's investing in will really help reduce the amount of gun violence, and then that will free up officers to do other things as well.
We know that the police workforce has been depleted in recent years. Would you say that their resources are being strained right now? Are there enough officers to respond to everything that's going on?
Yeah, I think we have a finite amount of officers, and we respond to calls every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We would love to have more officers. We're working hard to get more officers on the street. And, from my perspective, sure, we'd always love to have more resources, but we're really working hard to be as efficient as answering the calls for service and meeting the needs of the city with the resources we have. And we're doing a lot of that today through partnerships, missions, things that we're doing around stolen vehicles, organized retail crime, street racing. And we've been very fortunate to get support from partners in the metro area, law enforcement and prosecutors to help with those. And I think for us, knowing our resource constraints, it's really about how do we kind of force multiply through partnerships, technology to some degree, to really help us do what we need to do.
Chief, I had a quick clarification and then an actual question.
Sure.
You said auto thefts were down in the past 12 years. Is that 12 months?
No, 12 months versus the prior to that 12 months. Yeah.
And then this question is for anyone. Other cities have also seen violence up and then recently start to dip back down. How do you look at the programs you initiate here and say that those programs are responsible versus just following bigger macro trends?
Good question.
That's a good question. I think Keelan might be able to answer that. Keelan, are you there?
I don't know if they can hear us.
Keelan, can you hear me? He's right.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Did you hear the question?
No.
Can you repeat that?
Oh, man. I was asking, other cities have seen similar increases in crime and similar dips in more recent months. How do you parse out which programs here in Portland are actually impacting those crime rates versus larger macro trends impacting the country?
Yeah, I can't really make out what he's saying.
We'll follow up with you on that question.
Okay. Right, go ahead.
I'd actually I like that question. And first, let me just say, I don't have a great answer for you, but it's one I actually think about a lot. And the reason I think about it is because in local government, we're most certainly held accountable for national trends that happen at the local level. And people demand that we respond. And I learned very early on in my mayoralty that the wrong answer is to say this is a national trend and there's macro issues at work. That's the wrong answer. Nobody wants to hear that. So it is also true that we could be the beneficiaries of positive national trends. And I agree with you. I said repeatedly that as gun violence escalated, that Portland was not alone, that this was happening in cities all across the United States, but that we had an obligation to do what we could with the resources and the partnerships we had at the local level to address it. What percentage of the decline is due to good luck in terms of national trends, improvements in the economy, the passing of COVID, the re-engagement of people in social encounters, educational opportunities, workforce, whatever, and how much is specific to the programs here. At the end of the day, and this is why it's not a perfect answer, I don't care. If the trend is moving in the right direction and we believe that we are doing everything we can objectively based on best practices, on the partnerships we've developed, the credible interveners are really important to this work because they're the ones who have the direct, through the street level contact. They're the ones who are working directly with people, going to the hospitals. I mean, imagine going to a hospital and meeting with somebody who's in a hospital bed because somebody just shot them, and your job is to convince them not to retaliate. It's hard for me to argue against that as an effective strategy. So there are things that if we don't do them, the gun violence could continue at a high rate. But of course, we're swept up in macro trends that we have no control over. But I firmly believe, whether the data is going in the right direction or the wrong direction, that we have an obligation to act at the local level with the best information we have, with the strategies that we believe will show the best results. And the ones that we're focusing on here, the focused deterrence model, we know that is an effective model. The street level outreach, we know that that direct interaction is effective. Some of the youth programming that I mentioned briefly in my talking points, we know that engagement, particularly of young people in positive summer activities, potentially distracts them or prevents them from engaging in other activities. So there's no perfect answer to your question, but I want you to know I actually think about it a lot, and I appreciate you asking, because I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. So thank you.
Mayor, can I add, there's a lot of cities around the country that are actually adding a focused deterrence ceasefire sort of model. And, you know, I wish Keelan Henderson was still on here, because California Partners and Nick Jr., they're in cities all over the country. I think what we haven't really said is we are incredibly lucky to have California Partners and Nick Jr. Be involved in our strategy. They are great. They are experts in the police bureau. We look up to them. We are super excited to be educated, trained, have them help us implement the strategy. So I think, you know, around the city, everyone's trying to get on top of this stuff. But I kind of agree with the mayor a little bit. Like, the macro stuff is kind of hard. We have our issue in Portland, right? And our issue is bigger than Seattle, who has a bigger population. And so we have our work cut out for us. Regardless of national trends, we need everyone to be committed long-term to solve this problem. And, you know, I think what the mayor's office has done with, you know, some people say, hey, why did it take so long? This is a huge step, and I'm encouraging all the law enforcement partners and community-based organizations, media, citizens, get behind this, get on board. This is going to be a good thing. We need it. It's here, and I think we need to have a positive attitude to move forward.
Lisa, do you want to introduce your title?
Sure. Hi, my name is Lisa Freeman. I'm with the Community Safety Division. I manage our Alternative Response and Prevention Unit, which includes OBP and the Safe Blocks program. I just wanted to add in response to that question that in addition to the increased investments in prevention and this new model, we're also increasing our investment in evaluation. So we have engaged with a national firm called Social Impact. They're working very closely with local partners at the OHSU, PSU School of Public Health to evaluate the work that we're doing broadly across our gun violence reduction efforts and including ceasefire. So they'll be working with us for the next 2 years to give us ongoing feedback about what's working, what's not, and they'll be able to help us parse out what's differentiated between our local dynamics and the macro issues as well.
And I have to jump back in on this one because I like it so much. You know, somebody asked a really good question earlier, you know, why wasn't this put into place sooner? We're now better prepared for the next national movement that goes in the wrong direction. Had these programs been in place 3 years ago, I don't think you would have seen the national pandemic of gun violence peak the way it did as quickly as it did. Now we've all responded collectively as major cities around the nation, and we're better prepared, and we have better understandings of the issues that lead to the spread of a pandemic of gun violence. And this will serve us well in the future. You know, if in 10 years we have another natural dislocation like we did with COVID, and you know, it leads to the same kinds of social circumstances that precipitated the most recent wave of gun violence, we're now in a better position to address it before it really becomes a major problem.
Mayor, you talked about, to start off this press conference, that gun violence increases in Portland at a greater clip than across the country.
Yes.
When you say that shooting incidents are going down, but the number of homicides related to firearms is on the same pace or less.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Last year you talked about Safer Summer, PDX, community-based programs. People are hearing the same thing today. What is changing from last year that's already
The number of shooting incidents is down precipitously, and that's a good start. As you'll recall, at the beginning of last year's press conference, I put out some very specific metrics by which I would judge the program, 2-year metrics. We're seeing the actual number of shootings go down significantly. We're happy about that. We're not seeing the homicide rate go down to the same degree. We're not happy about that, and that's really the focus of what we're working on today. We have to see those homicide numbers move.
Let's get folks that haven't gone yet. Right, go ahead. Sure.
You just stay up there. I've been following you mentioned the street level outreach.
Yes.
RFP went out in December. I've been following since January. Originally, the hope was get the contracts out in March and then May, and now it's June. As the mayor, are you satisfied that those contracts are still not out, given the impact in that summer's year?
I am. We have 1 of 3 landed. The other 2 are imminent, so I am satisfied, yes.
What little commitment can you make that those organizations, once they are awarded, will actually be able to hire the outreach workers to be working by the time summer?
So I believe they will, but I'll turn that over. Actually, you're the expert on this. Perfect timing. Great.
All right, good. Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Sam Thompson. I am the primary prevention manager for the Office of Violence Prevention. And so I'll be the one who will be managing the street level outreach and cure violence program. I think what has happened over the last years, we've had the ability to build some capacity. We wanted to make sure as we move into this new process that we are moving with intention, right? We want to be intentional about what we want to do in terms of being able to reduce gun violence. And we also, with the organizations that we have, we want to kind of touch on to the accountability on the community, our job as people in government, our community-based organizations. I think that us bringing in the ceasefire program, that gets into that, right? We're building the capacity, we're having accountability, but I think one of the most important things that we've had to, and we need to get into, is collaboration. I think we have a lot of organizations within our city that are doing great work, but everybody's doing great work in their own individual silos. And I think with the creation of this ceasefire program, we are identifying those who are doing the right work and putting them all into a space where we can collaborate. Because for this, in order to work, we need the Office of Violence Prevention, our police department, everybody in our government, in law enforcement stages, as well as our community-based organizations, our faith-based community, and most importantly, those that are affected by it, the community members. So we also have to move forward in the same sense with a bit of urgency, right? Because this isn't numbers, these are people. I'm a native of Portland. Out of the last, 100 murders, I've known 50 to 60, right, personally, right? And so this is just not just data. It is people that are being affected by this. And so we had to make sure as an office, as a city government, that we are really ready to get to this place, right? And we also have to, and it's tough, while we want to be urgent and have urgency in these things, and we have to have patience because, right, we didn't get here overnight. And for us to believe that overnight we are going to stop something that's taking years to get to this space, it's not true, right? And so we have to be patient, have compassion for those that are doing the work, not those that are just affected by the gun violence, but the perpetrators as well as us as a community. And I think that the thing that we have looked and focused on as a community through ceasefire, through the Office of Violence Prevention, through everybody else, is creating a sustainability. Understanding that this work is going to not just take time. We got here over a few years. It's going to take us a few years to see results. But if we create the right capacity, put the right people in the spaces to do the work, we believe that if we continue to stay focused on this, we will get ultimately what we want, and that is a reduction in violence in our community. So that's what I think. Yep.
Go ahead.
On the topic of gunshot detection technology, that question went through a lot of evolution over the last year. First, a good COG assessment, review proposals, RFP, to an audit at one point. You mentioned the feedback that you heard on that impacting your decision here. What specifically convinced you that this is not the right decision at this time? And also, what could change your mind down the road? You mentioned right now, what would you need to see in order to change that?
Yeah, great. Thank you for the question. It really came down to resources, time, money, bandwidth, and personnel. And as we lined up all of the different strategies we could use to reduce crime this summer and make an impact on gun violence, we concluded that the strategies that we've outlined today were higher priorities for right now. Gunshot detection programming could be a very effective strategy for us down the road, but the chief and I met and we agreed that while we're seeing incredible improvement in our recruitment and our hiring of officers, the council, of course, just unanimously supported we're halfway through the budget process, but at every step so far, the council has thus far unanimously supported 43 more positions in the Portland Police Bureau. And the bottom line is we want to wait till we have those resources in place, and then we can reevaluate whether this model is one of our top priorities or not. So it's a good program. Again, I really appreciate the work the FitCog put into this, but these other strategies are better for now.
I have a question for the mayor. A lot of violence happening with young people right now. We saw in the springtime there were shootings outside of Portland Public School, high schools, as well as that tragic shooting in March, where I believe 3 or 4 young people were shot and killed the first weekend of spring. So looking ahead post-summer, what role do you see Portland Public Schools playing in your ceasefire program?
Yeah, there's nobody in this room more qualified to talk about this than Chief Lavelle. He used to work as a school resource officer. He's obviously our police chief, so I'll turn it over to him.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I think Sam touched on it a little bit. This is really something that's a comprehensive effort that it's going to require everyone kind of moving in the same direction on. We've had discussions around what role can police play in helping keep our kids safe in the school environment. Those conversations are continuing, and not just with Portland Public, but also with other school districts, Park Rose, David Douglas, MESD. So we definitely want to bring them to the table to be part of this. And we're constantly in conversations trying to figure out ways where we can play a role, whether that's SROs, whether it's some other role. We have now a liaison that works closely with them on issues of gun violence and violence on campus and around schools to bring police resources and other resources when appropriate to help them. But I think kind of like Lieutenant Dulio and Sam mentioned, this is really a community effort that it's going to have a lot of roles and a lot of opportunity for everyone to come on board and help with.
All right, we're running out of time. We actually have to rent this space, and we're out saying our welcome. Is there anybody that hasn't gone yet that would like to ask a question? Looks like no. Brandon, you've gone. Go ahead and ask one more question.
Just on the gun violence detection program, how much did research around some of the effectiveness of those technologies play into part of your decision? How much did the surveillance of marginalized communities play into the decision?
All of those issues came up during public input. We had extensive public input on this. Stephanie, where did Stephanie go? Why don't you actually talk about the public input piece specifically? But all of those issues were raised repeatedly by people who were very concerned about the strategy. It was balanced. It was probably 60% of comments were in opposition, 40% in favor. So more comments and community input on the negative than on the favorable. But for me, at the end of the day, honestly, it came down to the issues I described earlier, personnel, budgets, bandwidth, and competition with other programs that we thought were a better fit for right now. But Stephanie, could you talk just a little bit about what the public input piece was? Because it was substantial.
Yeah, I know through various meetings, we've had public meetings with PSEP. They had a town hall where we heard from a lot of community members about their concerns regarding privacy, regarding efficacy of the technology. We also worked with PSU to send out a survey, a community survey that was specific to the issue of gunshot detection, and we distributed that primarily in the areas that are experiencing the highest levels of gun violence to get those make sure that those voices were heard in this conversation, and then more broadly among our advisory body groups, our neighborhood associations. And so we really wanted to take all of that feedback from what we heard in meetings, in recommendations from different groups, and the community on a wider scale to make sure that we heard what everybody, we had a good representation from the broader community on that. That absolutely, I think, has been very prevalent in our conversations. Those concerns are certainly prevalent in our minds as decisions like this are made, and I know the chief and the mayor talked extensively about those views. So, we wanted to be very mindful about all of those perspectives as we evaluated what would be right for Portland right now. And again, as the mayor said, whether that technology might be right down the line when we have better resources and aren't in the midst of deploying lots of new efforts, including body cams, including, all of these ceasefire efforts, whether there might be a time where that's more appropriate and we can reevaluate.
I think the mayor said that the number of street-level outreach has doubled in the last year. Do you have the numbers of current street-level outreach workers?
Yeah, so with us emphasizing and starting this Cure Violence program, we will have 26 street-level outreach workers. That will include street-level outreach as well as violence interrupters. And so it will be up to 26 with the 3 sites that we have identified. It's a north and northeast Portland, a northeast Portland site, as well as a southeast Portland site. And so that will increase those numbers to 26.
So that's not current. You don't have 26 now.
We currently have 18. 11. We had 11. We're at 18 now, and we will add another 26. So 18, 11, 20, so we'll be at about 44 after all these, including our Safer Summer programs, as well as all of the other organizations within our program that are doing prevention and street-level outreach work.
So Max is thinking what I'm thinking. We're going to have to follow up with you on the exact.
Great. All right, let's wrap it up there. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all for asking great questions.